Chapter 31 Killing the White Snake. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Amon ignored Wei's accusation and said to Lei, "You can leave with them. Leave this to me and Yanjin. But, won't this be too dangerous? If it's just the two of you." Before he could speak, Yanjin interrupted him, "Don't hesitate. Just leave when I tell you to. Didn't you see that the big snake didn't come out when we were together? Okay." Lei shrugged. With Lei's company, the remaining mercenaries couldn't help but secretly breathe a sigh of relief. His fighting power was obvious to all, and he could temporarily fight against the eyeless snake by himself. The scary thing about the eyeless snake is that it appears and disappears at will. If someone can block its sneak attack and wait for others to react, then the balance of victory and defeat should tilt towards them. Watching them disappear into the bushes one by one, Yanjin couldn't help but worry. Is this okay? Will Lei be okay? No, I promise. My martial soul split is still in Lei's body, and martial soul fusion can be carried out at any time. Amon comforted. That's fine. Yanjin nodded. We're the only two left here. What new tricks are you going to come up with? Although Yanjin didn't like to think much, she knew Amon very well and knew that he always liked to hide his abilities. If it wasn't necessary, he wouldn't let others know his abilities. Even though she had been with Amon for 5 years, training and hunting spirit rings together, the number of times she saw him use his spirit skills was extremely limited. Letting Lei leave also meant that he was probably going to show an ability that he didn't want anyone else to know. There was a rustling friction sound from the tree canopy, which was caused by scales scraping against branches. Yanjin and Amon looked up and saw a white-scaled snake leaning over them, its tongue flickering, and the two darker areas under the horns on its head looked like two empty eyes. After Lei parted with it, it judged that the combination of the two was weaker than the other side, so it changed its target. This is not a wise choice, because hatred affects one's own judgment, and then doing something that is against one's own safety is undoubtedly stupid. Amon said softly, as if he was communicating with the eyeless snake, and as if he was using this example as a counterexample to educate Yanjin. In fact, the eyeless snake did not want to fight Yanjin head-on. If possible, it would rather solve this trouble by sneak attack, but in its future vision, no matter how it sneak attacked, it would always be stopped. So he gave up the plan of sneak attack and killed directly. Heh, stupid. Amon turned into a stream of light and merged with Yanjin, martial soul fusion. And this time it was not the clone of the time worm that was fused, but his body and Yanjin that were fused. In a starry sky like bright light, 12 rings rose, and rolling lava gushed out from the ground. After the vision disappeared, a man with long fiery red hair, wearing a monocle, and a slightly feminine face stood in place, with a mouth on his left cheek. Ah, what is this? Yanjin's voice came from the mouth on his left cheek. Amon smiled and explained, "This is the real martial soul fusion skill. It is the result of the fusion of my martial soul and your martial soul. Give me the initiative, and the battle will be over soon." At this moment, the soul power surging around Amon has reached the level of a soul master, which gives the eyeless snake a sense of crisis far greater than that of Yanjin and Lei before, but it is not afraid. One-on-one, it does not think it will not be able to beat a soul master. Molten lava keeps pouring out of Amon's hands, more and more. The hot magma ignites the surrounding grass and trees, and the flames are burning. The fire spreads quickly, which makes the eyeless snake feel uneasy. It takes the lead to launch an attack, rushing out like a sharp arrow, opening its mouth and biting Amon, but is blocked by a thick wall of lava. Even the scales blessed by soul power cannot completely resist the high temperature of the lava at this time. It feels a burning pain and shrinks back suddenly. Burning, burning, everything is burning. The surroundings are in a sea of fire. Lei, Vidal, Vega and others who had already moved away also felt the heat in the air. From a distance, there was a little red light in the forest behind. Too much. Vidal whispered. Vega nodded. It's not difficult to understand. If burning trees can create a favorable combat environment for myself, I will do the same. He thought Yanjin deliberately burned the forest, firstly to make the eyeless snake have nowhere to hide and unable to sneak attack, and secondly to increase the concentration of fire elements and enhance its own strength. In fact, Amon did not consider these. He just used magma normally, but did not deliberately avoid the damage to the surroundings caused by the magma martial spirit. The lava giant rose from the ground in the center of the sea of fire, and his huge figure was like a god or demon. Lava giant soldier, Amon dared to hunt this nearly 10,000-year soul beast, and the confidence of the eyeless snake with the combat power of the Soul King also came from this. Yan Jin's martial spirit can continuously produce magma by inputting soul power. The more input, the more magma can be produced. As long as there is enough soul power, the destructive power of this martial soul can be said to have no upper limit. What Amon lacks the least is soul power. Even though he spread a lot of clones along the way as a backup for accidents with his main body, and left some in Lei Yin's body, he still has more than 100 around him. The 50-meter-tall giant looked down at the eyeless snake. The huge white shadow that originally brought endless fear to the mercenaries now looked delicate and exquisite. The giant's right arm was very strong, almost 2/3 the size of his body. The eyeless snake raised its head and swallowed the snake letter. Feeling puzzled, it could sense the huge body, but it did not feel the soul power fluctuations that matched it. In its view, this giant seemed to be just an empty frame, without much sense of crisis. This was the external manifestation of Amon using the first soul ring to steal his own soul power, which made it misjudge, but the next moment, it panicked and turned around and fled desperately. In its future vision, it saw itself being beaten into a pulp by a punch. The huge fist had already fallen down with a bang, like a meteorite falling from a high altitude to the ground. The orange-yellow halo wrapped around the fist, dragging a long tail behind the arm. God's fist crushes, that the shadow enveloped the eyeless snake. Even though it had tried its best to escape, it still could not completely escape the coverage of the lava fist. Boom! With a deafening roar, the back half of the eyeless snake disappeared into the boiling magma. Even with the vitality of soul beasts, such an injury of losing half of its body is fatal. The front half of its body was thrown away by the air wave generated by the impact, and fell softly on the land that was burned by the flames and was already charred. Amon broke away from the lava and walked towards the motionless eyeless snake. He raised his hand, gathered his soul power, compressed the air, and an enlarged version of the air bullet condensed in his palm. Refine the air bullet, that the eyeless snake, with only the upper half of its body left, suddenly moved. It took the attack head-on and rushed towards Amon desperately. Heh! Don't you pretend to be dead. Even the soul ring didn't fall. Do you think I will believe such a death? Amon showed a mocking smile. He stretched out his left hand and materialized the soul power in front of him, condensing it into a barrier. The blind snake, which was already at the end of its strength, slammed into the barrier with a bang, causing cracks in the barrier. Amon waved his right hand, and a gray soul sword appeared. He removed the barrier, took a step forward, cut off the snake's head with one sword, and then cut the snake's head in half with another sword. Chapter 32, Advancement to Soul Master. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. A dark purple soul ring appeared on the body of the eyeless snake. The color of the soul ring was very deep, purple and black. A smile appeared on Amon's face. He turned around and whispered, "Yan Jin, help me protect the law." Yan Jin was still in the shock of the lava giant soldier just now. He looked at the big crater made by one punch and then at his own fist, feeling a little dazed. It wasn't until Amon shouted again that she came back to her senses. Oh, okay. But that move just now was too cool, that she was in good condition at the moment. Originally, the soul fusion technique was a huge burden for the two people who used it. Basically, they would fall into exhaustion after using it once, but their consumption this time was borne by Amon's clone. Yan Jin discovered another little secret about Amon. He had an abnormal amount of soul power. Although it had been revealed before when she was assisting her and Lei Yin in sparring and providing them with soul power, it was not as obvious or shocking as this time today. I asked, in the state we were in just now, could we defeat the Soul Emperor? Yan Jin asked. Amon shook his head, it can't be killed. Although the attack is already at the Soul Emperor level, the movement is too slow, and a normal Soul Emperor can easily avoid it. Of course, if under special terrain or under special rules, the Soul Emperor, even the Emperor, can't please him. For example, in the Soul Master competition. Yan Jin smiled. She had already imagined in her mind the scene of herself and Amon's martial soul merging, transforming into a lava giant in the competition, occupying most of the arena, and then punching 7 children. Hey hey hey. Ha ha ha. Jia jia jia. Isn't the champion easily within reach? Okay, stop screaming, protector. Amon had to repeat again. Amon raised his hand and revealed his martial spirit. A translucent worm with 12 rings and a starry sky color was swimming in the palm of his hand. Following the pull of the soul power, the soul ring flew towards Amon, wrapped around the worm, and overlapped with one of the rings. A force came from the martial soul like a surging tide, filling Amon's body. The tearing pain tortured his nerves, and layers of murmurs also sounded. Dozens of time clones helped him share the surging energy, and the energy transferred from the martial soul was always stuck at the critical point of the body's absorption limit, allowing him to fully enjoy the benefits of the additional soul ring without losing the energy. Hence the injury. After a long period of absorption, the energy from the martial soul gradually faded away. Amon opened his eyes, feeling the power of the body's improvement, and a trace of joy appeared on his face. Level 34. Amon has been settling down for a while at level 30. Although he has not improved during this period, his soul power is still accumulating. In addition, he has absorbed soul rings that are far beyond the limit of ordinary people, so he has been directly promoted to 4 levels. Every time the level increased, the control over the soul power brought by the first soul ring also improved. Amon soon fully mastered the rapidly growing soul power. The escaping soul power around him calmed down, and he returned to his previous state. That unassuming attitude. TSK. Your soul power control is really a monster. Even though it was not the first time he saw it, Yan Jin was still surprised. Having said that, your soul power is too much. Forget it, you don't have to answer, you won't answer anyway. My martial soul has the effect of storing soul power. It can store the usual soul power and use it at critical moments. Amon replied. Yan Jin rolled her eyes, her intuition telling her that it was much more than that. Don't believe all Amon's words, especially about his own abilities. Even if you see it with your own eyes, you have to think about whether this is an illusion deliberately made by him. Okay, let's go back. The noise caused here is too great, and it might attract stronger soul beasts from deep in the mountains. Amon patted Yan Jin's head. At this moment, the abyss of soul power suddenly descended, and a terrifying aura filled the air. Amon, Yan Jin, including Lei Yin, Baidar, and others further away, all felt a breath that could make people's hearts stop. A sense of terror and oppression. Boom. 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 The volcano that had been dormant for a long time suddenly became active, spewing lava from its mouth. Lava flows, pouring down from the top of the mountain like a tide, and volcanic ash blocks the sky and the sun, making it as dark as the end of the world. Run! Vega yelled. Damn it, didn't you say that the volcanoes in the Iron Heart Mountains have not erupted for hundreds of years? Norbert looked in horror at the volcanic bombs that fell nearby from time to time, igniting trees one after another. With a panicked expression, Lei Yin looked back worriedly and whispered to himself, Sister. Don't worry, run quickly. Don't forget that her martial spirit is magma. This kind of disaster, maybe, probably, can't be withheld. Vidal originally wanted to persuade Lei Yin to concentrate on escaping, but looking at the scene like the earth was shattering that day, he felt that the words magma spirits are not afraid of volcanic eruptions seemed unconvincing. However, when he turned his attention away from the volcano in the distance, he found that Lei Yin had already escaped for a long distance. Thunder and lightning wrapped around his legs, boosting his speed to a very high level, with sparks and lightning all the way, making a sizzling sound. Hey! The corner of Vidal's mouth twitched, and he rushed after possessing the martial spirit. Looking at the pouring volcano, Yan Jin felt more intuitively the development path Amon had planned for her. This is the destructive power of magma, the destructive power of volcanic eruptions, and the destructive power of natural disasters. But compared to this, the fleeting pressure just now made her care more. Amon, did you feel it? That just now. Even Yen Jin, who had always been fearless, showed a look of fear on his face. Well, it should be some kind of powerful soul beast. Amon's face was also solemn, but there was not much worry in his eyes, because the big guy in the depths of the mountains was still far away from them. Yen Jin suddenly pointed to the top of an erupting volcano and shouted, "Look there, snake, such a big snake." Looking in the direction of her finger, Amon saw a giant snake entwined in a crater. The huge body was looming in the volcanic ash, and the magma flowed along its scales, but it could not cause any harm to it. It had a pair of curved horns on its head, and the red scales were like twisted insects. It looked very similar to the eyeless snake just hunted, but the difference was that it had eyes. Because the distance was too far, the area occupied in the field of vision was not large, but both Yen Jin and Amon knew that it was definitely an unimaginable behemoth. Generally, a snake of more than 10 meters or 20 meters long would be impossible to see at that position. What kind of soul beast is this? Yen Jin asked. I don't know. Amon shook his head. Yen Jin looked at him in surprise. There is something you don't know. Amon chuckled, I'm not omniscient, how can I know everything? Although I have read many books introducing soul beasts, they only record some common soul beasts. This world is very big, with too many unknowns that we need to explore and discover. I do have some guesses. Yen Jin smiled with some pride. They were not nervous about the volcanic eruption. As long as they were not sitting in front of the crater to bear the huge impact, the magma scattered around the periphery was no threat to them at all. Oh. Amon was surprised. The dragon-slaying warrior came to the Iron Heart Mountains, where he saw the Iron Mountain Lord who lived in the depths of the Sea of Fire. He defeated the Red Lotus Serpent and used its scales to forge a sword of fire that never goes out. Yen Jin said in a chanting tone. You heard this, travel notes or legends from the tavern. For a moment, Amon really thought that Yen Jin would occasionally read one or two eccentric books. Yen Jin shrugged, but it fits this, doesn't it? Amon pinched his monocle. Indeed, sometimes, legends also come from life, but this is a pleasant surprise. He looked at the giant snake living on the top of the volcano with deep eyes. Chapter 33, Suspicion. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. News of the unusual movement deep in the Iron Heart Mountains quickly reached the city lord's mansion. A middle-aged man with brown curly hair, a high nose, small eyes, and a somewhat fat body frowned as he listened to the butler's report. Mels, a soul emperor cultivator, the lord of Iron Heart City, and the father of Vidal. You said that Vidal happened to go to the Iron Heart Mountains to hunt for soul rings? Yes, the young master has just set out not long ago. Calculating the time, he will probably be in time for this volcanic eruption. The butler lowered his head, not daring to look at Mel's expression. He shouldn't have any problem. To hunt a soul beast that's more than 1,000 years old, you don't need to go deep into the mountains. Myers didn't care too much about Vidal's safety and asked instead. Has anyone seen the big red snake swimming out of the volcano? Can you still see it from more than 10 kilometers away? Impossible, this is absolutely impossible. If so, how big must the snake be? The housekeeper whispered, although it is unbelievable, there is more than one mercenary saying this, and they are far away from each other. It is unlikely that they are collectively experiencing hallucinations. I understand, go down. After the housekeeper left, Myers tremblingly took out a travel diary left by his family's ancestors from the bookshelf, and turned to the page about the big red snake. This was originally his favorite miscellaneous book in childhood, but it made him feel faintly afraid. He sat on a chair, rubbed his brows, and murmured to himself, is there such a terrifying thing next to Iron Heart City? The legend that has been circulating for thousands of years is actually true. After a while, Mel stood up and put the book back on the bookshelf, and then wrote a memorial to report the existence of the serpent to Emperor Shui. Powerful soul beasts are also a precious resource, provided you can hunt them, otherwise they are just a threat. Myers knew that it was something he could not handle, so he had no intention of coveting it. If the royal family send someone to clean it up, then he can not only eliminate a major threat, but also gain the merit of reporting. In the Wahunzi Hall of Iron Heart City, a group of soul masters gathered together to discuss the matter of the big red snake. That is definitely a 100,000-year-old soul beast, someone said excitedly. His Holiness the Pope is in need. It will definitely be a great achievement to report it. Sir Walter, what do you think? The master of Wahunzi Palace asked respectfully to the old man sitting at the head. Walter's hair is gray, and his face shows the vicissitudes of time, but his whole person does not have the feeling of old age. He looks like a handsome old man full of energy. This is your business. You are the person in charge of Wahunzi Temple in Iron Heart City. I have no idea about that kind of monster. Walter waved his hands, as if he was not very interested in it. Do what I asked you to do. Done yet? I have sent people to Frostleaf City. Yes. Walter nodded with satisfaction, an inexplicable smile on his face. The carriage clattered on the cobbled road. Yan Jin was lying on the ceiling of the carriage, while Lei Yin sat next to the driver and looked at the scenery from the side. Several days have passed since the turmoil caused by the big red snake, and people are still talking about it everywhere in Iron Heart City. This had nothing to do with Amon. After obtaining the third soul ring, he was ready to set off for the North City, but because Vidal planned to go with them, he was delayed for some time. You've finally finished cleaning up, Golden Retriever. Yan Jin sat on the roof of the car and glanced at the gorgeous carriage following behind, saying in a casual tone. Vidal frowned. Can you please stop calling me that? It sounds like a dog. Okay, Golden Retriever. Vidal. Well, he can't beat him, but he endures it. What happened to you in the end? He asked. What else can I do? So far, Amon has never failed in what he wants to do. Yan Jin said matter-of-factly. Although he had some guesses in his mind, Vidal was still shocked when he received the other party's affirmative answer. You two worked together to kill that ghost. So Amon is already a soul sect, no, soul king, that the upper limit of the fourth soul ring is about 5,000 years, and the eyeless snake is extremely close to the 10,000-year soul beast, so Vidal speculated that Amon was not the 40-level soul master he had guessed at the beginning, but a 5th-level soul master. The 10th-level soul sect, through absorbing the soul ring this time, has entered the realm of soul king, a 17 or 18-year-old soul king. I'm afraid that the geniuses among the geniuses who have become famous in Wuhuan Palace are no more than this. Amon shrugged. No, I am just a soul lord now. Ah. Soul master. Vidal was a little surprised. Are you kidding me? How can the third soul ring be absorbed for more than 9,000 years? I can. My martial soul is somewhat special. It can be split to transfer unnecessary and excess energy to prevent myself from tearing apart due to being unable to withstand the huge energy. Amon replied with a chuckle. It is foreseeable that he will spend a lot of time with Vidal in the future, so he selectively reveals some secrets that are difficult to conceal. Yan Jin curled his lips, knowing that Amon was lying again. Although what he said was the truth, others would only understand it in another way. Are you really just a soul master? Vidal said with a bit of surprise. If it's fake, it will be replaced. This seems even more amazing than if he were Soul King. Who can absorb a soul ring that lasts nearly 10,000 years when he is promoted to Soul Lord? Of course, since the splitting wastes a lot of energy, the quality of my soul ring will decline. It's not as scary as it sounds, but it's just a little higher than the limit of ordinary people. Amon explained. The third soul ring that Amon now has is actually about 6,000 years old. Although it can't compare to those of more than 9,000 years old, it is scary enough compared to the limit of 1,700 years for ordinary people. Suppressing the shock in his heart, Vidal is more confident about passing the selection and representing Northland College in the elite competition of advanced soul master colleges across the continent. He asked another question. How old are you now? Probably more than 17. Almost 18. Amon recalled and said uncertainly. It's a pity that this is the last session you can participate in. You will be over the age limit in the next session. Otherwise, our college may really win the championship. Vidal was a little regretful. Northland College is his alma mater. If he can win this honor, he will also be proud of it. No need for the next session, we can do this session. Yan Jin sat up and said with a firm face, although she didn't know how strong her opponent would be, it would definitely not be too strong, otherwise it would not be a competition for young people, but should be renamed as a competition for the strong. There are still 3 years before the Soul Master competition, and she estimated that it would not be a problem for both her and Amon to reach level 10, by then. The normal state of the fusion of their martial souls would be the strength of a Soul King, coupled with Amon's unreasonable huge total soul power, summoning the lava giant soldier. In the narrow arena, even a soul saint could be defeated. Vidal looked at Yan Jin's fearless appearance, and there was a little more smile in his eyes. He didn't know the power that Amon and Yan Jin could exert together, and only regarded it as a kind of momentum, a courage to not be afraid of difficulties and dare to fight. Chapter 34 Amon's Third Soul Skill. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Amon's third soul skill is called Decryption Scholar by himself. It also brings an active skill, as well as some permanent passive improvements: passive effect, enhance perception, gain insight into weaknesses, find loopholes, foresee dangers, and be able to judge the opponent's next move through the target's subtle body expressions, when activated automatically. It is a continuous skill that can predict the soul ring or soul bone skill that the target will activate 1 second in advance, and gain insight into the effects and loopholes of this soul skill. The effect of insight is related to the level comparison between oneself and the other party. If the target's level is higher than one's own, the information obtained through insight will be very little. With a smile on Amon's lips, the puzzle of his abilities is becoming more and more complete, and he is developing in the direction of Secret Amon. Of course, since this is a soul ring skill, after the Douluo localization, it is not completely consistent with the abilities of each stage of the Stealer sequence in Mystery, and is slightly different. He expected that his next soul skill would give him the ability to fight head-on, instead of being like now, where the serious soul skills were all for auxiliary purposes, and he could only rely on his self-created air bullets to deal damage. Amon stepped out of the carriage and looked at Yan Jin and Lei Yin, who were sitting on the rocks chewing dry food. The carriage cannot move all the time. It needs to stop every once in a while for repairs so that the horses and people can relieve the fatigue of the journey. Vidal also stepped down from his luxurious carriage. His carriage was much better than the one hired by Amon and the others. It was more comfortable to sit in without too many bumps, and the carriage was pulled by a black-scaled horse with a hint of soul beast blood. He found a flat piece of grass and spread a thick velvet blanket on the ground. With a flicker of his fingers, a pile of hot meals appeared on the stall: braised pork elbow, roasted whole lamb, foie gras, caviar, sashimi. Yan Jin glanced at Baidar's sumptuous meal and suddenly felt that his dry food was even more difficult to swallow. She swallowed and turned away from looking at him. Vidal smiled and said, "Come here, everyone. This time I have prepared food for 4 people, enough for us to eat in Beatty City." That would be disrespectful. Amon walked over to him and sat down cross-legged. "Oh. I love you, golden retriever." Yan Jin jumped on the spot, jumped high from the stone, and then landed lightly beside Amon. Lei Yin also came over and said politely, "Thank you for the hospitality." After drinking and eating, Yan Jin touched his belly and lay on the blanket without any image. "I'm full." "Vidal, how did you bring so many things with you?" Vidal looked at Yan Jin in surprise. This was the first time she called him by his name instead of Golden Retriever. He shook his right hand, revealing the ring on his index finger. "This is a space ring. It is a special soul guide. There is a small space inside that can hold dead objects." "Huh? Is there such a convenient thing?" Yan Jin looked envious. Vidal wiped the corners of his mouth with a handkerchief, looked at Amon and asked, "We want to form a team, and we need at least 7 people. Do you have any candidates for the other 3? Amon shook his head and said, "Not yet. Let's go to the academy and see." With all the outstanding students from the entire Northland province gathered together, there will always be a few who are good. "Well, I will recommend a few when the time comes." Let's see if they suit you. Vidal has already acquiesced to Amon's dominance. He was impressed by the powerful fighting power shown by Yan Jin and Lei Yin in the battle with the eyeless snake. And Amon, who can make the two of them, especially Yan Jin, the troublemaker, be obedient, will naturally become more powerful. Okay. Amon nodded lightly. After a moment of silence, Vidal suddenly stood up and said, "Fight with me, beat me, and I will recognize you as the captain." Amon pinched his monocle with a smile in his eyes. "Are you sure?" Vidal said seriously, "I'm sure. Although I guess you are probably an auxiliary soul master. When fighting the eyeless snake that day, it should be your credit for the two of them suddenly becoming so powerful, right? It's unfair for me, a fighting soul master, to challenge you, an auxiliary soul master, but since you want to be the captain, you have to show strength that convinces everyone." Yan Jin opened his eyes wide and looked at Vidal with an expression of admiration and a bit of pity. She had challenged Amon countless times over the years, and every time she was beaten one-sidedly, even with her strong nerves, she was almost shaken up. "Then it's as you wish." Amon walked to the open space away from the road. Vidal stood opposite him, with some caution. Vidal, a 30-level agility attack war soul master. Vidal introduced himself according to the etiquette before a soul master duel. Amon smiled and said, "Amon, a 34th level auxiliary soul master." Level 34. Vidal was stunned. "Didn't you just absorb the soul ring? You also know that the age of the soul ring I absorbed is a bit high. Compared with the risks, the benefits are also high, right?" "Indeed, it's enviable." Vidal nodded and showed his martial soul, with 3 soul rings, 2 yellow and 1 purple, shining brightly. Seeing that Amon was still standing there relaxedly and without any movement, he couldn't help but frowned. "Aren't you going to summon a martial spirit?" Amon just smiled and said, "I'm ready, you can attack at any time." Seeing him being so arrogant, Vidal was a little annoyed. "Then be careful." Gem Cat, possessed, without further hesitation, he immediately activated the second soul ring and rushed towards Amon at an accelerated speed. Amon raised his index finger and thumb and aimed at Vidal. Air bullet. Bang! A small pit exploded on the ground. Vidal's eyes shrank. He avoided this with the good reaction and agility brought by the cat-like martial soul, but was forced back by more air bullets. The distance between the two was getting farther and farther. It's not that you didn't use the martial soul, but your martial soul, or a certain soul skill can cover up the visual effect of the martial soul and the fluctuation of soul power, right? Vidal said affirmatively. Oh. You found it so quickly. It took Yan Jin, that little fool, half a year to guess it. Amon praised. Vidal glanced at Yan Jin, who was called a fool and was grinding his teeth, and said. This is easy to guess. When you use a soul skill, even if it is a self-created soul skill, it is impossible that there is no soul power fluctuation. I felt the attack just now after you launched it, so you must have similar skills, and the scope of action is only you. The soul skill cannot continue to affect you after leaving the body. Amon nodded. Yes, but the soul skill before and after leaving the body is two different concepts. You have enough time to react to the former, but it is often too late to discover the latter. This is just like dodging bullets. Maybe people with quick reactions can predict the landing point of the bullet based on the shooter's movements and dodge, but it is too late to dodge after the bullet is fired. Chapter 35 Battle Results. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. A seemingly ordinary, even useless skill, combined with air bullets can make most soul masters helpless. In the past, Yan Jin fought against Amon and was defeated by this move every time. Vidal smiled confidently. Although it is difficult, I just have the means to deal with it. He rushed towards Amon again. The first soul ring lit up, and a gem-shaped, pale pink, beautiful shield appeared in front of him. Moving as he moved, the air bullets hit the shield, making a series of explosions. Vidal frowned. This was different from what he imagined. His first soul skill, the gem shield, could dispel energy attacks, and it could also resist physical attacks, but he had to bear the impact himself. He originally thought that Amon's invisible soul skill was some kind of pure energy condensation, but he didn't expect it to have an entity. It seems that your method is not that easy to use. Amon smiled. The air bullet is a trick that uses soul power to gather air, and then wraps it and launches it. It is not pure soul power, so even if the gem shield dissipates the soul power on the surface of the air bullet, and the blasted air will still have impact. Amon increased his soul power output, stretched out his right hand, and spread his 5 fingers. A vortex seemed to appear in the palm of his hand, and the surrounding air continued to rush toward the center of the vortex. Air refining bomb. With a sound like breaking glass, the shield in front of Vidal shattered into pieces, and then turned into energy and dissipated. At this time, Vidal had already rushed to Amon. 1. Such a thought flashed through his mind. Anyone who looks at Amon's attire and his fighting style will think of him as a long-range soul master who is not good at melee combat. When his fist was about to touch Amon, it was blocked by a white palm. Before he could react, he felt dizzy. Amon grabbed his wrist, threw him in front of him, and then kicked him in the chest, sending him flying. The physical control brought by the first soul skill, and the ability to predict the opponent's movements brought by the third soul skill, make Amon invincible in close combat. Vidal fell to the ground, his expression still a little dazed. Amon's movement just now was so fast that even after he was kicked away, he still didn't know how he did it. He just felt a black shadow flash, and then he lay on the ground inexplicably. I never said I could only attack from a distance. Amon's plain voice made Vidal come back to his senses. He knew that he had lost, but he was still a little unwilling. I was careless just now. Try again. Let you see my third soul skill. Vidal put his hands on the ground and did a backflip to get up. Before he could stand still, he was hit on the knee by an air bullet and he half knelt down. Don't tell your opponent your intentions. We are still fighting. Vidal was a little annoyed at first when Amon interrupted his handsome appearance. After hearing this, he calmed down, nodded and said, I have learned a lesson. The third purple soul ring lit up, and a layer of cyan light appeared around Vidal. The light turned into spiraling blades, spinning around him. Be careful, this is my third soul skill, the roar of the Wind King. However, before he could take any further action, he saw a scene that stunned him. An air-refining bomb with a diameter of more than 2 meters has gathered in front of Amon, and the surging soul power brings a huge sense of oppression. With just one glance, he understood that if he was hit by that head-on attack, he would definitely die. Even the aftermath of the explosion was not something he could easily take. He shook his head helplessly, dispersed the wind blades around him, raised his hands in a gesture of surrender. Okay, no more fighting, you win. Amon waved his hand and dispersed the air-refining bomb. This understatement made Vidal feel that he was unfathomable. Amon pinched his monocle and said, Then I am the captain. Well, there is no doubt about your strength. Vidal said with conviction. In fact, Amon's air bomb just now was just a fake. Even he couldn't gather such a large air bomb in a short time. He just deliberately created such a large vortex in the air, and then returned part of the expressive power of the soul power collected by stealing the first soul ring, creating the illusion of great momentum. If it is his real attack, it is often completed quietly. Yen Jin glanced at Amon suspiciously. She relied on her intuition and understanding of Amon to realize that there was something fishy about the move just now, but she couldn't explain why and scratched her head. In the meeting hall of the Pope's palace, a woman with fair skin and perfect appearance stood in the center, wearing a luxurious black robe with gold patterns, a 9-curved purple gold crown on her head, and holding a 2-meter-long scepter inlaid with countless gems. She looked quietly at the old man half kneeling in front of her. Behind her is a colorful and lifelike mural of angels. The seraphs spread their wings and cast countless rays of light. Below, all living beings worshipped and all species surrendered. The angel is right above the woman, adding a bit of mystery and nobility to her. This noble and elegant woman is none other than the contemporary Pope of Wuhuan Palace, Bibi Dong. Are you saying that 100,000-year soul beast appeared in the Iron Heart Mountains? Bibi Dong's soft voice was filled with excitement. Yes, Your Majesty, it's a big red snake. The information coming from the Tiexin City Palace should be correct. The old man replied respectfully. Elder Ju, Elder Gui. As she called out, 2 figures, one black and one white, appeared behind her. Go organize the people. and don't take those below level 70. Yes. Yu Guan and Gui Mei bowed slightly, when Bibi Dong gathered a large group of people and prepared to leave Wuhuan City and go to Jiexin mountain range. A voice suddenly sounded beside her ear. Wait here for a while, I have something to do. After saying that, she walked towards the elder hall. A tall, burly old man was quietly waiting at the door of the elder hall. What do you want to see me for? Qian Daolu. Bibi Dong said indifferently. You want to go to Jiexin mountain range? So what? Do you want to stop me? Qian Daolu's expression did not change, and he said calmly, it's better not to go. When Jia broke through to level 90, I also took him to Jiexin mountain range, hoping to give him the best. Don't mention that person in front of me. Bibi Dong gritted her teeth and whispered, ignoring her anger. Qian Daolu tore open his sleeves and exposed his shoulders. This is the result at that time. Bibi Dong's pupils shrank. There were large burn marks on that shoulder. Although she hated Qian Xuanji's family, she had to admit that the old man in front of her was indeed the strongest person in the Douluo continent today, a peerless Douluo at level 99. What kind of terrible soul beast could leave such scars on him? Iron Mountain Lord, Red Lotus Snake. In that environment where the fire element is extremely active, even I have to be a little bit afraid. I don't want Shuer to lose her mother again. After saying that, Qian Daolu turned around and walked into the hall. Looking at his leaving back, Bibi Dong fell silent. She sent a message to Yu Guan and Gui Mei, the plan is cancelled, let's all go. This. Yu Guan and Gui Mei looked at each other. Chapter 36 Rejected. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. After several days of trekking, Amon arrived at Beatty City. This is the administrative center and economic center of the Northland province. It is also the place with the strongest military power. This is the pride of the Nords. It is said that in the distant past, when the Northland was not yet conquered by the Tiendo kingdom, this fortress held back the Tiendo army for 3 years. Looking at the towering city wall, Yan Jin exclaimed, "Wow! Is this the North City? It's more majestic than the Iron Heart City. This is natural." Vidal said with a smile on his face, "I will take you to report to Northland College. It happens to be the admission season. Enrollment will not be very troublesome. Just follow the normal process." Amon paid off the driver's balance, walked to Vidal's side, pinched his monocle. "I hope so." Under the leadership of Vidal, they came to the office of the grade director. "Teacher Rona, I brought 3 new classmates to report." Vidal opened the door and walked in without knocking. "Get the hell out of here, you bastard!" A brown-haired man with a round face roared. "Tajis, didn't you lock the door when you came in?" Rona arranged her clothes and got out from under the desk. Vidal looked a little embarrassed, and he said sheepishly, "Sorry to bother you." After saying that, he closed the door, shrugged at Amon, and said briskly, "It seems we came at the wrong time." "No, you guys came just in time." Lorna opened the door and dragged Vidal in by his shoulders. "What were they doing just now?" Yan Jin asked confusedly. Amon smiled, "Maybe it's the impulse from life instinct." Tejas walked out with a dark face and said to Amon angrily, "Are you just the 3 of you who want to enroll in school?" "Yes." Amon took out the 3 certificates of outstanding graduates that Shi Guantao gave him, and said, "Is Teacher Zhua Jianming here? I have a letter from Dean Shi to forward to him." "Oh, Mr. Zhua. I will go through the admission procedures for you first, and I will take you to him later. Lorna and Vidal have something to discuss." Tejas looked through the graduation certificate casually, and then he was stunned. Yan Jin, 12 years old, 28th level Great Soul Master. Lei Yin, 11 years old, 20 level Great Soul Master. And Amon, 17 years old, a level 30 Great Soul Master, is also very good, even more talented than that boy Vidal. In his opinion, Amon was just like that, and it was a bit reluctant to qualify in the academy competition, but Yan Jin and Lei Yin had the potential to shine in the Soul Master competition and win honor for the academy. Although Lei Yin's level is slightly lower, he is still young. If he works hard, he can participate in 3 Soul Master competitions. Tejas looked at Yan Jin and Lei Yin and said, "Will you show me your martial soul?" The two looked at each other and then showed their martial art spirits. The 4 yellow halos exude a faint halo, not shining, but beautiful. When he looked at Amon aside, he was stunned. The 3 soul rings of yellow, purple and purple were floating quietly. Tejas stared at the second purple soul ring and said in disbelief, "How did you do it?" Amon replied, "This has something to do with the characteristics of my martial soul itself, and I absorbed the second soul ring relatively late. I waited for my body to grow for a while before going hunting, so it also delayed the progress of my soul power cultivation." "Is this like this?" Tejas held his chin and said, "The gain is indeed not worth the loss. In order to add a soul ring with a longer life, deliberately not to obtain it and wait for the increase in physical strength, this is undoubtedly a waste of talent. Do you want to come to my class? I promise to give you the best guidance." He looked at Yan Jin and Lei Yin, and the anger at being disturbed had completely disappeared. Yan Jin and Lei Yin looked at Amon. Tejas added to Amon, "You can come too." That it was just incidental. Amon was used to this. This was also the case when Mawan invested in them in the past. The main target was Yan Jin, who was just a byproduct. He was able to reach this point so smoothly, thanks to Yan Jin. She was so good, and there were always people showing favor to her, and Amon benefited from a lot of resources. Of course, it was under Amon's guidance that Yan Jin fully utilized his talent, and the two of them succeeded each other. "That's enough, Tejas, you bastard, don't compete with me." This was brought by Vidal. "Of course it should be left to me." Lorna's voice came. Tejas smiled and said, "Well, it seems it won't work." When he was going through the admission procedures for Amon and others, a voice interrupted them. "Wait a minute, these 3 people can't enroll, our Northland College won't accept them." A man with a majestic appearance but a short and fat body came over and said calmly. "Dean, why? Their talents are obviously very good." Tejas asked in confusion. "Because they have a problem. The one wearing the monocle is an assistant teacher of Bingfeng Junior Soul Master Academy, not a student. The other 2 are famous thieves in Frostleaf City. The academy cannot treat such scum. Revenue, it would bring disgrace to the college's reputation." "Who are you calling a scum?" "Fatty." Yan Jin's eyes were full of anger. Lei Yin looked at him with the same indifference, ready to take action at any time. Although he is gentle towards others, he will not be soft on those who seek trouble maliciously. "Be patient." Amon soothed, "Since we are not welcome here, let's leave first." After walking out of the academy, Yan Jin was still a little aggrieved. What bullshit reason? Is that fat guy trying to make things difficult for us? Wait a minute. Tejas chased him out and whispered to Amon, "That person just now was the first-year dean, Zhu Yoji. The reason just mentioned is just an excuse. The college will not examine this for admission. As long as you have talent, have a recommendation certificate, and have not done anything heinous, there will be no problem. Some small mistakes are nothing. Little brother, you'd better think about whether you have sinned against anyone recently. Someone should have spoken out, otherwise the grade director wouldn't just refuse talented soul masters to join." Tejas mentioned something and left in a hurry, as if he didn't want to have any more contact with them. Offend someone? Yan Jin frowned and pondered, is it that golden retriever? He does one thing on the surface and another on the other. I have only fought with him recently. Yan Jin quite consciously put the matter of offending people on himself. Among the 3, Amon lives in seclusion and is busy practicing. Lei Yin is gentle and kind to others. She is the only one who is either fighting or on the way to a fight. It's also possible that those mercenaries are angry with us because of the eyeless snake thing. Lei Yin guessed. Amon smiled and denied, mercenaries don't have that much energy. If they want revenge, they will only do it themselves. Maybe it's that golden retriever. He deliberately lets others interfere, and then solves the problem himself, so that we can be grateful. Yan Jin speculated on Vidal from a malicious angle. Hey, red-haired kid, it will make me sad if you say that. Vidal came over, with a somewhat unsightly expression on his face, and said to Amon. I've asked, but the dean won't let go. Don't worry, I'll work on it. Aunt Rona also has some connections in the college. I'm going to find out what's going on. Chapter 37 Walter. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. The sun has set, and darkness enveloped the earth, the pedestrians on the road gradually became sparse, and the evening breeze blew. The branches of the white maple trees beside the road swayed left and right, and the leaves followed with rustling sounds, as if they were laughing at something. 3 figures, one big and 2 small, walked on the empty street. Yanjin and Lei Yin held hands, looking confused and helpless. They had just visited Mr. Zhou Jianming, who was also unable to provide help. I'm sorry, Amon, maybe I got into trouble again and implicated you. Yanjin said depressedly. She originally thought that the championship of the college competition was within her grasp, but reality slapped her hard. She couldn't even do the most basic admission, so how could she talk about participating in the competition? Lei Yin persuaded, Sister, don't worry, the most important thing for us now is to figure out what happened. Believe in Mr. Amon. Amon did not answer, but just looked ahead. Man in a black robe and brown leather armor stopped in front of them. Glenn. Looking at this familiar figure, Yanjin shouted with some joy. Glenn looked indifferent, and said in his low and hoarse voice. I heard about you. You can't even enter the academy, so how can you help us promote the Ice Thorn Chamber of Commerce at the Soul Master competition? That the joy on Yanjin's face gradually disappeared, and she said without confidence. But, it's all the fault of that fat man, we clearly. No need to say, any excuse is pale. If you fail to fulfill the agreement with Lord Ma Wan, don't blame us for being ruthless. Just work for our Chamber of Commerce in the future. Glenn said in a cold tone. Don't worry, Lord Ma Wan will take good care of Mori and the others. You just need to do your work with peace of mind. Hearing the threat in his words, Yanjin was furious. What did you say? Say it again, bear. Magma appeared on her fist with flames, red light illuminated the street, and a scorching breath began to spread. Glenn was not afraid at all, even though he was no match for Yanjin, even though he was alone facing 3 geniuses who had already begun to show their talents, he still said calmly. Before you take action, you'd better think clearly about what you are doing. Do you want to tear up the agreement with Master Ma Wan? In Frostleaf City, even Shi Guantao can't protect anyone Master Ma Wan wants to kill. I will stay in Beatty City for a while and wait for your reply. I am just here to remind Master Ma Wan of the agreement you signed. It is not a bad result to work in the Ice Thorn Chamber of Commerce. I hope you don't reject the kindness of that master. Glenn emphasized the tone when he said that master, and then turned and left, looking at his receding back. Yanjin clenched her fists, and finally let go of them dejectedly. The fiery red glow faded, and the magma extinguished. She looked at Amon anxiously and asked, what should we do next? For 5 years, they have been going smoothly and have hardly encountered any setbacks. A bright road is right in front of them, but they are thrown into the abyss at this critical moment. Although returning to Frostleaf City and working for the Ice Thorn Chamber of Commerce does not seem to be too bad, at least for Yanjin and Lei Yin who struggled to survive in West Street 5 years ago, it is already a decent life, but who can endure the darkness after touching the light? If they go back like this, it can be foreseen that what awaits them is busy work, doing some dirty work in the dark for Ma Wan day after day, not much time to practice well, and eventually they can only waste their talents and be lost in the crowd. Amon pinched his monocle and said with a smile, what should I do? Didn't Glenn say it? He walked forward slowly. Yanjin was still confused, but Lei Yin was thoughtful. After walking half a street, Amon whispered, we're there. Yanjin looked up at the tall building in front of him with a dazed look, and found that they had arrived in front of the main hall of the Northland City Wuhuan. Who is it? The guards at the door crossed their spears and blocked the way. Now the Soul Masters have rested, come back tomorrow if you have anything. A guard said. Amon raised his finger, and the second soul ring was activated. The guard's expression suddenly became dull. Amon's spirit is considered outstanding even among soul masters of the same level, not to mention compared with ordinary people. Under this huge gap in mental power, the effect of the second soul ring is particularly obvious. The two guards can hardly think and cannot react to the outside world. Pushing away the spears blocking the way, Amon pushed open the door and walked in. Hey! We just broke into the Wuhuan Hall like this. Yan Jin still has awe for the first soul master organization on the continent. In Frostleaf City, the Wuhuan Hall is also the only place where she has not made a move. The lights in the hall were bright, and a middle-aged man in a black robe stood in the center of the hall. He had small eyes, a hooked nose, thin eyebrows, a thin face, and bloodless lips, looking a little gloomy. It's so late, and you come uninvited. What can you do? That the oppressive feeling belonging to the soul saints suddenly came, causing Yan Jin and Lei Yin to take a step back and utter a muffled groan. I'm here to find someone who can make the decision in the hall. Amon said softly. The gloomy soul saint replied, I am the master of this main hall. Amon's mouth corners slightly curled up, and asked with a hint of deep meaning, can you really make the decision? Of course. The gloomy man suddenly laughed, no. Let them come up. An old and peaceful voice sounded in the ears of the four people. The source of the voice could not be heard clearly, as if the person was standing in front of him and talking. Yan Jin felt that the voice seemed familiar. On the second floor of the spirit hall, they saw an old man with gray hair but full of energy. He was looking at Yan Jin with a kind look, with an inexplicable smile on his face. Ah, it's you, Well, what? Yan Jin pointed at him and exclaimed. It's Walter, kid, we meet again. Walter said softly, I think you won't refuse me again this time. Reject what? Yan Jin tilted his head and didn't understand. I thought you all guessed it. Walter smiled and looked at Amon. Amon shook his head slightly. I guessed it. Lei Yin probably guessed it too. As for Yan Jin, who you have great expectations for, well, she is relatively simple at heart. You arranged the 3 gangs of robbers on the road, right? The Northland College refused to accept us, and Ma Wen's people seamlessly applied pressure. This doesn't look like a coincidence at all. Walter nodded and admitted it openly. Yes, it was me. I learned from Zhonglan that you have been very successful in the past few years, but sometimes too much success is not a good thing, so I want to give you some small tempering. Amon shrugged. Your tempering has made Yan Jin suffer enough. She probably hates you to death. Sure enough, Yan Jin's angry voice came from the side. What? Old man, this is all your fault. That she almost didn't think about it, and she took action directly. Magma emerged from her fist, and heat waves rose. Big fire. Chapter 38, Become a Disciple. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Regarding the lava coming towards him, Walter just smiled and stretched out his hand, with his fingers spread wide. He inserted his fingers into the magma and blew lightly. The originally hot lava cooled down and turned into a black, steaming stone. Yan Jin's pupils shrank and he looked at the scene in front of him in disbelief. Child, you should learn to respect the strong. As soon as he finished speaking, a terrifying pressure swept over him. This soul pressure is so terrifying and violent, like a landslide or a tsunami. Yan Jin and Lei Yin were half kneeling on the ground under oppression, with cold sweat breaking out on their foreheads. They wanted to resist, but they couldn't control their bodies at all. Their legs were shaking uncontrollably. Even standing up was a luxury. Their hands were weak and their fists were clenched. Not tight. Yan Jin's face was full of shock. She originally thought that she was a little master, but she didn't expect that she was not even qualified to stand in front of a real strong person. This pressure crushed her pride and complacency to pieces. She gritted her teeth and her lips drew blood. Walter looked at Amon, who was still calm in surprise, and asked, You don't seem to be affected. Powerful soul power can oppress a person's spirit and body. This oppression is also a manifestation of the expressive power of soul power. When such expressive power acts on Amon, it becomes the target of his first soul skill. Theoretically, Amon cannot be affected by any soul master's aura. In fact, the insects of time parasitic in the bodies of Yan Jin and Lei Yin can also steal the host's soul power expression, but Amon intended to let Yan Jin learn a lesson, so he did not help relieve the pressure they were under. Yan Jin was too reckless, and this punch made him feel nervous. I have special coping skills. Amon replied with a smile. Walter had no intention of exploring, and whispered to Yan Jin, remember, don't rush to attack a soul master who is much more powerful than yourself, it will cost you your life. Yan Jin curled his lips and remained silent. Sorry, I apologize to you for my sister's recklessness. Lei Yin bowed deeply. Amon pinched his monocle, said TSK, and asked. Then let's get back to the topic, Lord Walter, a big shot like you shouldn't be bored and embarrass us, right? Walter stroked his beard gently, looked at Yan Jin and said, of course not, this is tempering and testing. I have been paying attention to your growth. You are a very good child. You rejected me back then, but you also showed your character of valuing friendship. But everyone needs to bear the price of their own choices. Since you chose to refuse at that time, I will not provide you with resources or help you grow. What makes me happy is that even without the help of others, you still live up to your talent and still shine. Mi Zonglan reported your situation to me, so I set up this test. The robbers on your road were all arranged by me. They were operating in other places, but I caught them. I told them that if I could kill you, I would spare their lives. Your performance is satisfactory, no, it can be said to be amazing. That he touched his palms and praised. Yan Jin, now I ask you again, are you willing to be my apprentice? Yan Jin looked at Amon, opened her mouth, but said nothing. After a long silence, she said weakly, if I don't become your disciple, Beatty College will not accept us, and Ma Wan will too. Is it bad for my brothers and sisters? Walter shook his head and said, no, how can anyone force others to be their apprentice? I want to find a successor, not to cultivate an enemy. Even if you refuse now, Northland College will still welcome you to enroll, and the Icethorn Chamber of Commerce will restore friendly relations with you. I will not interfere with you anymore. What happened today is just to remind you that without any background, even if you have talent and ability, you may not be able to stand out. You need a supporter. Just like you asked Ma Wen to invest in you in the past, you can also try to make me your backer now. Yan Jin said a little stubbornly, I already have a master, it's Amon. Thanks to his constant care, I can get to where I am today. Walter looked at Amon, who smiled faintly. Even if Walter didn't find them, he would find a similar person. Now, Ma Wen can no longer help them, so Amon needs a new Ma Wen. As for whether the new Ma Wen needs to recruit disciples, trade, or anything else, Amon will not refuse. He is still weak, and obtaining enough resources and growing faster is his pursuit at the current stage. Walter's ability to take the initiative to come was exactly in line with Amon's expectations. First of all, this solved the hidden danger. He no longer had to consider the potential threat of Contra, who once wanted to take Yan Jin as his disciple but was rejected. Secondly, the energy of a Contra is large enough, attached to its wings, and there will be no need to change its master for a long time in the future. However, this seems to cause a little emotional harm to Yan Jin. This is not unacceptable. Practically speaking, becoming Walter's apprentice would do no harm to Rock Ember himself. Yan Jin's interests and Amon's interests are bound to a certain extent. Amon pinched his monocle and said. Yan Jin, I am just your mentor in the academy, an ordinary teacher-student relationship, not the kind of master-disciple relationship where one inherits a mantle. Although I admit that I am your teacher, I have never admitted that you are my disciple, right? At most, I have said that you are half of my disciple. The disciples that Walter said can pass on the path and continue the will. Do you think I need you to continue my way of being a soul master? But. Yan Jin's nose felt sore and his eyes were a little red. She really regards Amon as her teacher and the person she respects the most. Although she usually shouts Amon without any respect at all, deep down in her heart, she is very dependent on him. Ignoring Yan Jin, who was about to cry, Amon looked at Walter. Mr. Walter, the master chooses the apprentice, and the apprentice chooses the master. This is a two-way process. Are you really ready to teach Yan Jin? Do you have an idea about her future development direction? Do you understand the characteristics of her martial spirit? You must know that a master cannot impart his own power to his disciples. What is more important is the teaching of knowledge. Walter pondered for a moment, nodded and said, I have my own teaching theory. I am not a research-oriented soul master, nor do I have profound knowledge. To be honest, I am not very good at teaching in the traditional sense. However, although the master's power cannot be directly imparted to the apprentice, it can bring resources, and then use the resources in exchange for this power to promote the apprentice's growth. This can be regarded as imparting power in disguise. Amon raised his eyebrows. This old man had something special. He used honorifics in his address. A very advanced theory, you must also be a very good educator. Yen Jin, I think under the training of Lord Walter, you can become a great soul master better and faster. When he said the second half of the sentence, he turned to look at Yen Jin. Yen Jin was still immersed in the loss of not being recognized by Amon. After hearing what he said, he looked at him with pitiful eyes and said in despair, If that's your decision, I'm willing to accept it. Walter saw that Yen Jin was still a little reluctant, but he didn't care. He was thinking about how to make her identify with him as soon as possible and willingly admit that he was his master. After all, there are not many good young talents who can be compared to the golden generation. Yen Jin followed the ancient tradition, knelt on the ground, and kowtowed 3 times to Walter. Walter smiled with satisfaction. Okay, since you have become my apprentice, now, accept my first lesson. Lei Yin looked at his sister distressedly. He knew how uncomfortable Yen Jin felt, but Walter was so eager to act like a teacher, which made him a little angry. Maybe I didn't explain clearly in these chapters, which caused some readers to misunderstand. Walter didn't directly threaten her with Yen Jin's family. He just made others dare not show kindness to Yen Jin, cut off her friendship from others, and made her feel helpless without a backer or background. Yen Jin entrusted his younger brothers and sisters to Ma Wan, not only to ask her to help take care of them, but also to show his sincerity and cooperation. Originally, even if she couldn't fulfill her initial agreement and couldn't participate in the Soul Master competition, Ma Wan wouldn't force her. Because Yen Jin is already powerful enough, forcing her to work under him may not be a good thing for Ma Wan. Ma Wan will still treat her friendly, but because of Walter's pressure, Ma Wan could no longer treat her kindly, so when Yen Jin couldn't enroll in school and couldn't pay the promised rewards, he followed the agreement and reminded Yen Jin to come to work. The safety of her family is Yen Jin's leverage and the guarantee for her to fulfill her promise obediently. In fact, Yen Jin and Ma Wan knew this from the beginning. As long as Yen Jin doesn't break the agreement first and return to Frostleaf City to work for Ma Wan, her family will still be safe. Therefore, what Walter vaguely threatened Yen Jin was not the lives of her family, but the bright future she might get, the life opportunity to stand out from the Soul Master competition, and this did not step on the bottom line. Moreover, this also strengthened the truth that Walter wanted Yen Jin to understand, that is, with a good master, your future will be brighter. Chapter 40 Enrollment. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. The next day, when Amon and others came to Beatty College again, the dean of students, Zhu Yoji, had a completely different face. Oh my, aren't these the 3 classmates from before? I'm sorry, it was my mistake before. I excluded you because of some baseless rumors. Now it has been found out that it was completely untrue. I apologize to you. Zhu Yoji bowed deeply to them and kept his posture very low. Huh, damn fat man, your attitude has changed quite quickly. Yen Jin also wanted to taunt her, but Amon stopped her with his hand in front of her, interrupting her. Director Zhu, we are also responsible for causing such a misunderstanding. I'm sorry for wasting your time. Now that the misunderstanding has been resolved, shouldn't we also enter the normal admission process? Okay, Mr. Amon, it's great that you are so sensible. Your admission materials have been reviewed and approved. Do you have any other requirements for the 3 of you? I can make the decision and let the 3 of you go to the class you want to go to. Seeing that Amon was so easy to talk to, Zhu Yoji was obviously relieved and said with a bit of flattery, the Northland Advanced Soul Master Academy is divided into 3 grades. Those who have just entered the school for less than a year or whose soul power does not exceed level 20 are in the first grade. Those who have been enrolled for more than 1 year and whose soul power is between 20 and 30 are in the second grade. Those whose soul power exceeds level 30 are third grade. The maximum age of students is 25. If they are over 25, if their soul power does not reach level 30, they will be dissuaded and will not be issued a completion certificate. On the contrary, as long as the soul power reaches level 30, you can choose to graduate at any time. Most people who are over level 30 will not choose to graduate immediately, but will still study in the academy for a period of time until they are close to the age of 25. Firstly, there are strong teaching staff in the academy, and secondly, for the continent-wide Senior Soul Master Elite competition, in addition, you can get to know more talented students and expand your network. Put us all in the third grade, in the same class as Vidal. Amon said. Zhu Yoji rubbed his hands, looking a little embarrassed. Is there any problem? Amon wondered. It's like this. According to the college regulations, you have to stay in the first grade for 1 year. It doesn't matter if you want to go to any first grade class, but Vidal has been promoted to the third grade this year. The third grade is not my responsibility. Within the scope, Director Yu's consent is required. I think this is a bit difficult. Director Yu is quite rigid. She hates students who get special treatment through personal relationships. According to the information I received, you are already in your 30s. Even if you haven't stayed for a full year, it shouldn't be a big problem to go to the third grade. But Yan Jin and Lei Yin, their soul power levels have not reached the requirements. She don't want to let go. The surname is Yu. Is it the Yu I know? Amon raised his eyebrows. Zhu Yoji nodded and said, yes, Director Yu's full name is Yu Xinxue, and she is a branch member of the Blue Electric Tyrannosaurus Rex family, so she doesn't have to look at the faces of most people, and even the principal has little restraint on her. Although there was a precedent for someone who entered the third grade without soul power, that person passed a relatively rigorous test and was recognized by Director Yu. Test. Yan Jin raised an eyebrow. Isn't it you who wants to make things difficult for us again? She now resents the word. Zhu Yoji smiled and said, how is it possible? The master told me to give you as much convenience as possible in the academy. How could I dare to disobey it? The old man's reputation is pretty good. Yan Jin doesn't have much respect for Walter at the moment, but Amon's analysis made her understand that there is a hint of coercion in accepting a disciple this time, but she didn't hate it either. After all, Walter was really generous to her, and even though she didn't like studying, she seemed to fall in love with the class. Walter's teaching ability was unanimously recognized by Amon, Yan Jin, and Lei Yin. What test? Lei Yin asked. They came to Northland College mainly to obtain the qualifications to participate in the Advanced Soul Master College Elite competition. Of course, it would be more convenient to enter the third grade as early as possible. Defeat a third-year Soul Master level student. Zhu Yoji replied, well, this is not without room for maneuver. We hinted that the student participating in the assessment should be more cautious. To his surprise, Lei Yin and Yan Jin didn't look worried at all. That's it. Yan Jin crossed his arms in front of his chest with a nonchalant look on his face. Lei Yin smiled. The difficulty seems to be lower than I thought, as long as you are not a soul master like Mr. Amon. It seems that you two are very confident, and you are worthy of being cared for by that adult. Seeing that the two of them were so confident, Zhu Yoji also had a relaxed look on his face. Just arranging an assessment, Yu Xinxue would not give him even this little face. Amon, Yan Jin, Lei Yin, what are you? Baidar, who was passing by, saw the four of them and came over to say hello. Oh, Golden Retriever, our matters have been settled, the admission procedures have been completed, and there is only one assessment left before I can go to your class. Yan Jin chuckled. Vidal looked surprised. Come to our class. Yes, I will apply to Director Yu for a special promotion assessment for these 3 students, and they will be classmates by then. Zhu Yoji said with a smile. Vidal felt that something was not right about the situation. Why did Zhu Yoji refuse to let them enter school the day before, and now he started to get in trouble? He could detect Zhu Yoji's friendly attitude towards them, even a little respectful. He didn't dwell on it, and he didn't intend to delve into it. He said enthusiastically. Come to our class, that's great. I just got promoted to the 3rd grade this year. Our class teacher is the 3rd grade teaching director, Teacher Yu, who is a great beauty. And there are only 2 Soul Emperor level teachers in our academy, and she is one of them. Have you ever fought with other people in your class? How strong are they? Yan Jin asked the question that she was most interested in. I said, I just got promoted to the 3rd grade. Although I have been in contact with them for the team formation of the academy selection competition, I rarely fought head-on. Vidal was worried that Yan Jin would be careless during the assessment, and added. Don't underestimate others. When I fought with you before, we were both great soul masters. Now you may not be able to beat me. The Academy regularly organizes personnel every year to help students who meet the requirements to hunt soul rings, so the 3rd soul ring of 3rd-year students is basically at the Millennium level, which can greatly enhance combat effectiveness. Don't treat them as those soul masters who have reached the end of their potential. Those who can come here to study have good talents. When I was a great soul master, I could beat some soul masters outside. But if it were the 3rd-year students in the Northland College, even those with lower strength, it would be difficult to remain undefeated. Oh, so, I think you are getting cocky because you have one more soul ring. Do you want to fight? Yan Jin directly invited him to fight. Vidal shook his head and refused. You should focus all your energy on the upcoming assessment. Seeing that they were in a harmonious atmosphere, Zhu Yoji said goodbye. I'm going to find Director Yu first. You two should get along well. Okay. Yan Jin waved her hand. She was still a little unhappy with the fat man.